This script, the hidden narrative controlling billions, is written not in ink, but in pain and silence. The Ravencrofts understood a truth most deny. Power is not won by force alone, but by control of the mind's architecture. They crafted a system so insidious that it bypassed protest before it could even begin. Pain became not punishment but language. Silence was not absence but obedience. Fear was not weakness but submission. This is the matrix they built beneath Ravenwood's forests, an invisible network of psychological codes and rituals designed to dismantle the self. And here's what you need to hear next. This matrix has outlived the brothers. Their deaths, whispered about but never documented, did not end the church. Instead, it fractured into cells, underground networks, movements cloaked in other names, other faces. In fact, the idea that this darkness died in 19th century New York is a deliberate lie. Because what the Ravencrofts pioneered has been copied, refined, and weaponized over centuries. Every cult, every authoritarian regime, every shadowy organization that seeks to control not just actions, but thought carries a fragment of their blueprint. From secret societies embedded in government halls, to shadowy tech firms exploiting neural data, to religious sects using ancient rites, the DNA of the pure spirit survives. And most chillingly, it is still working. If you've ever felt trapped by invisible forces, manipulated by ideas you didn't choose, or drawn inexplicably into belief systems that consume identity. That's the legacy speaking. They built a cage around the mind, disguised as salvation. But what if I told you there's a way out? That the first step isn't rebellion, but awareness. Because to break the cycle, you must first see it. And to see it, you must embrace the darkness without fear. Now, before we descend deeper, I want you to do something important. In the comments, write this phrase twice. I see the pattern. I break the pattern. This is not empty words. It is a ritual, a declaration of self-mastery. A lock to open your mind's prison. Write it down now, twice. The algorithm watches, but so does your soul. Are you ready to descend further? Good. You've taken the first step. Now let me show you what lies beyond the veil, the darkest corridors of the Ravencroft legacy. Once the phrase, I see the pattern, I break the pattern, is spoken, it becomes a key, it signals an awakening. You begin to notice how language, ritual, and trauma have been used against entire populations, like the followers of the Church of the Pure Spirit. By the 1830s, the cult's rituals had evolved into something unimaginable, not just purification through suffering, but psychological warfare conducted within the church's hidden chambers. The 7 trials of purification, once whispered rumors, were a grotesque blend of sensory deprivation, physical torture, and mind-fracturing techniques. These trials were designed to break down the walls of identity, exposing the spirit vessel to the influence of what Caleb called the deep voice, a dark force not of God or man, but of control itself. These sessions were meticulously recorded in secret journals by Deacon Silas. Each victim's response was logged: heart rate, pupil dilation, vocalization patterns, signs of dissociation. They were experimenting, refining a brutal science of domination. Survivors described the experience as a death of self, not in body, but in soul. One whispered, I died in the dark, and when I woke I was empty, yet filled. This emptiness was not absence, but receptivity. The Ravencrofts were no longer priests. They were architects of the mind, shaping their followers into conduits of their will. This was the birth of modern psychological control, and it was all hidden beneath the guise of faith. Do you see how deep this runs? The church was never about salvation. It was about submission. And submission is a weapon. Submission is the ultimate weapon because it turns the wielder into the willing victim, and the victim into a weapon. By 1833, the Ravencrofts understood this and used it to terrifying effect. They no longer needed to coerce every follower directly. The architecture of control was so deeply embedded, the congregation policed itself. The church's doctrines evolved into what insiders called the Circle of Silence, a code where followers would enforce obedience among themselves, not through fear of punishment, but through fear of shame and exclusion. If you broke the unspoken rules, you weren't punished. You were erased socially. Invitations to gatherings vanished. Whispered warnings followed you in the market. Your name was omitted from prayers. This social death was often worse than physical pain. It created a culture of surveillance and betrayal, not by outsiders, but by brothers, sisters, even spouses. Caleb himself wrote in a fragmented journal entry, "Trust is the gate, but silence is the lock. Without silence, the spirit flees." By 1835, this paranoia had spread beyond the church walls. Ravenwood itself became a town wrapped in whispers. Locals outside the congregation noticed neighbors suddenly changed, eyes hollow, movements mechanical. Children began disappearing. Not all returned. Some said the church took them for special preparation. Others whispered darker tales, sacrifices made in the name of purity. Few dared ask. Because the Ravencrofts held the power of fear like a dark flame, illuminating the town's secrets and scorching anyone who reached too close. What makes this truly sinister is how easily this cycle of submission replicates. Fear breeds silence. Silence breeds control, and control breeds more fear. This is the pattern. And it isn't confined to 19th century America. It thrives wherever humans forget to question, to see beyond the veil. Remember the phrase, "Are you ready to plunge deeper?" The darkness didn't stay confined to Ravenwood. It metastasized. By the 1840s, whispers of the Church of the Pure Spirit had spread beyond upstate New York, carried in hushed tones through underground networks of secret societies and occult circles. The Ravencroft's disciples began to infiltrate powerful institutions, universities, medical schools, government offices, places where influence could be wielded like a blade hidden in plain sight. Their reach extended into the burgeoning field of medicine, where Deacon Silas, with his scholarly connections, brokered grisly deals to supply human remains from ascensions to anatomical theaters. This wasn't just commerce, it was a transaction of terror, a sinister barter that financed the cult's expansion and masked their atrocities behind the guise of scientific progress. Medical students, unaware of the origins of their specimens, were unwitting participants in this cycle of death and control. Meanwhile, the brothers refined their psychological techniques, using medical knowledge to deepen the impact of their rituals. Caleb's journals reveal experiments on nerve clusters, pain thresholds, and sensory deprivation, merging religious zeal with proto-neuroscience. The cult's brutal practices became more systematic, more precise, a terrifying blend of science and fanaticism. Yet, outwardly, the church maintained a facade of charity and piety, even hosting public events that won them grudging respect. This duality, public reverence, private horror, is a hallmark of all successful systems of control. It seduces with kindness, while it crushes with cruelty. What you must understand is this. The Ravencrofts were not merely madmen, they were strategists, and their strategy was to embed darkness within light, creating an impenetrable web of deception. To this day, echoes of their influence ripple beneath society's surface. Institutions that claim to serve us may harbor the same dual faces, and the greatest betrayal is that most never suspect the mask. The most insidious lie is that these horrors belong only to distant history, that such darkness was burned away with time, forgotten beneath the march of progress. But power does not disappear, it transforms. After the Ravencrofts vanished into obscurity, their methods quietly evolved and infiltrated new arenas. Their psychological blueprint became a hidden curriculum in the schooling of obedience and control. You see, the church's lessons didn't die with their victims. They were absorbed into the very fabric of modern institutions. In prisons, the cycle of isolation, submission, and broken identity mirrors the 7 trials of the pure spirit. In military training, the systematic destruction of self to build the perfect soldier echoes the ritual purification rituals from Ravenwood. In corporate culture, subtle manipulations of language, peer pressure, and rewards condition employees to unquestioning loyalty and compliance. The Ravencroft legacy is the silent engine driving these systems. More disturbing is the role of technology. From early telegraph codes to modern social media algorithms, patterns of control have been amplified. Messages designed to trigger emotional responses, polarize communities, and fracture critical thinking. Algorithms become invisible shepherds guiding thought and behavior, much like the brothers guiding their flock through darkness and pain. If you've felt manipulated by unseen forces, if you've questioned who really holds the reins of power, you are tapping into the same awareness that those first broken souls in Ravenwood once sensed. This is your invitation. To reject passive submission, to awaken the power within you that cannot be programmed, erased, or controlled. But this awakening comes at a cost. It demands you face uncomfortable truths. It forces you to see the shadow lurking not just in others, but within yourself. Are you prepared? Because the descent continues.